I was curious to know if Doug still had all those records from yesteryear, so we journeyed to the man cave. I found a lot more than I'd bargained for. Retro antiques, old toys, more wall hangings with most everything based on 50s and 60s music. There was just so much to stare at. I couldn't help but think of how diverse a collection can be. How do I put a label on this room? Is it a retro collection with music at its center, or just a hodgepodge of antiques? I could have spent a whole day getting the history and stories about each and every one of these items, but it seemed to me that I was losing my focus. So, trying not to get lost in the maze of artifacts, I pushed on to get to the room of records.
Well, there they are. Wax, vinyl, records, LPs, 45s, and 78s, probably too.
Absolutely.
And these are the original crates that we hauled back and forth to record shows, and the ones that nearly broke my back, I'm sure.
You probably remember hauling those up and down the stairs one at a time.
Up and down the stairs, and not only to the shows, but when you're all done in the day and you're tired and you go back, and then we're going down the stairs.
10,000 records up and down stairs.
These are the records that aren't really your collection.
No, this is actually my selling inventory. This isn't my personal collection. I have about 100,000 records, approximately 20,000 selling stock, and about 80,000 in my personal collection.
80,000 in your personal collection. So would you call all these doubles and triples and just lower quality maybe?
Yeah, that's a pretty good description. Just things that don't fit in my collection. They're more common, or they're duplicates. I have a music library is how I would describe my personal collection. My attempt was to get every record ever made in the 50s, which I never got close to, but I made a serious dent in it anyway.
You have a brother who was a good friend of mine,
Right.
and you had a love for music, and I had a love for music, so I saw you had all these records, and of course I had just barely a handful of records, and you had about a bazillion even at that time. So you started a collection, and you figured out you had too much, and you had to sell some of it?
Yeah, it didn't take long to figure out that there were other collectors out there. I was the only one in the area at the time. I started in 1972, about the time that American Graffiti, the movie, came out, and that was the big impetus for other people to start collecting, I think. Yeah, I did shows for about 15 years. They tell me it was one of the best in the country. I had people coming from as far away as London, England to attend the shows. There was somebody that collected just about anybody you could think of. I even had one lady who collected nothing but Bing Crosby, and I would go out between shows and try to hunt down the rarest and most unusual Bing Crosby albums that I could find. When the CD came in, it really didn't affect record sales too much because the record shows were about record collectors, and they just weren't too interested in CDs. Vinyl's actually making a comeback. They're making phonographs again. It's pretty great for vinyl collectors. It's harder for today's generation to get back into the era of the music that you and I collected. For example, the British Invasion. It's harder for them to get from rap or today's rock back to British Invasion and to relate to that era. And even harder yet to get back to the 50s rockabilly. Elvis Presley, for example, when I was selling, he was the hottest artist. Nowadays, you can't hardly give them away because the collectors pretty much already have everything they wanted, and the newer kids that are starting to collect, they just don't relate to Elvis. Well, I'm not going to throw it away, that's for sure. It still has quite a bit of value. The rare records are still rare records, and they actually sell pretty well.
Now, I know growing up in the Midwest, all we had really was rock and roll and country. And it was hard to find blues, jazz, rockabilly. And what other kind of collectible genres are there?
It depends on the area of the country that you're in. Now, we're right here in Iowa. So back in the 50s, there was very little blues that was even sold or even heard on the radio. What you found around here in the 50s was primarily country and western. And your pop vocalists like Frank Sinatra or Doris Day, all of that stuff sold very well up until the invention of the CD. I could even sell soundtracks in the old days. movie soundtracks, Broadway plays.
Soundtracks? Who'd want to listen to soundtracks? That is really the dumbest thing I've heard. You know, I'm dumb. You know, just because I don't connect with a person's collection doesn't mean that others won't. So it looks like the record collecting days are on hold for you. I guess, you know, yearbooks, is that all you're collecting now?
I've still got my Matchbox cars, celebrity autographs like Chuck Berry, ephemera, which is early billheads, papers, and letters. I also collect vintage sports equipment, Hot Wheels, Mad magazines, early postcards from my hometown, action figures like Johnny West and G.I. Joe. I also collect rare concert posters, vintage sports photos and athletic programs. My slot car collection is still growing. I collect sheet music that goes through many generations, antique photographic images, anything from the good old days.
Just a quick side note, my favorite collectible at Doug's was not only this Buddy Holly autograph, but he had a ticket stub from the Davenport, Iowa concert in January 1959. Just 1 week before he died. Notice the artist order. Was he or wasn't he the headliner? Our speculation, whoever printed the tickets had no idea. Okay, that was neat and cool, but seriously overwhelming. Honestly, I thought I was pretty knowledgeable, but Doug is light years ahead of me. In this show, I'm creator, producer, editor, interviewer, and I'm beginning to think I'm wearing too many hats. I think I might need somebody else. I need more than just a reporter. I need a true expert who's willing to dig deep, detect and analyze collections, and understand the methods and inner psyche of the collector. And then I had an epiphany. Right under my nose was an answer to my dilemma. Doug would be a perfect fit.
Hey, Doug. You want to be a regular part of the show?
I guess.
Cool. Later. Okay, now we can roll the intro to the show. Got a collection that you think is neat, unique, cool? Drop us a line, send us a few pictures at collectingseriously.com.
And now here's a sampling of upcoming episodes on Collecting Seriously.
The top portion of the showcase has the gas-powered cars. These cars all have like an airplane engine in them. They used to race these on a track years ago. I always liked the old thermodromes. I had one when I was a kid one time, and they used to sell them out at the fairgrounds. They used to have a booth out there.
What's the attraction for you to oil and gasoline products? Did you?
I don't know.
Collecting egg beaters isn't really something I think that would come to my mind, quite honestly. How did you ever get started?
It just began as easily as that I needed an egg beater. Then I started finding some interesting ones. Cast iron. Found out that these were, you know, probably 100 years old or better.
Kathy, you said you were taking me out to the shop, and this isn't exactly what I was expecting. I thought I was going to see an old workbench and a vise, and I guess by the word shop you mean this is what happens when you shop.
And then over here, of course, these are all the other Zoller signs, that the different ones that I happen to have. So,
well, it's amazing that a sign of this age, a neon sign, would survive this many years.
the main board was bought at a show in St. Louis, and it came back to Davenport, and a very good friend of mine actually sold it to me. He said it belonged in my collection.
Ever since that time, it grows on you. And then back in about the early 70s, I got into it big time. I think there's about 24 different presidents here. The value is what the signature is on.
You know, I collect signatures myself a little bit, and checks, of course, are going to be items that are not going to be forged for the most part. What a great picture of an airplane.
Yes, this is my Marilyn Monroe. She is probably one of the most popular signatures you can get in the entertainment field. And then on the guy side, probably James Dean and Humphrey Bogart.
And that's what got me started collecting radios. I don't have an electrical background at all. I'm into woodworking, and years ago when I was going through an antique store, I saw 2 old wood consoles, and I got looking closely at the wood, and I realized that the walnut burl on there, it would cost me more to go buy that than this radio itself was worth. So I ended up buying those 2 radios just because I like the wood in them. This is from the Saturday Evening Post. And Christmas was a big time for radio sales, as you might imagine. As a matter of fact, some dealers even had like a savings program, and you had like a passbook, and you would save your money all year long to buy your radio at Christmas because it was a gift for the whole family.
Maybe we should talk a little bit about the lightning rod itself. This was a copper rod, is that right?
No, that's correct.
They put it on top of tall buildings.
The electric companies hadn't built out the farms. They would be on garages, they would be on houses, and you find them on anything. But the ball and the weather vane was just for beauty.
This is the China head, one of the earlier dolls made. And they were made to look like adults. I always think that this one kind of looks like our grandmothers might have looked with the type of clothing that she has on and the hairstyles that she has. And then in the mid-1850s, they decided that they should make dolls that looked more like children. And so this was, we think, one of the very first ones that was made to look like a little girl doll, for instance, rather than the lady dolls.
A lot of the phonographs that I've worked on, and once they're ready, they get displayed over here, and if anybody wants to take a look at them, they're welcome to.
So this room is filled with phonographs that you've picked up along the way somewhere and have restored and now are selling.
Yard sales or farm auctions, or maybe even at larger auctions that have mostly just phonographs for sale there. But they all wind up over here after I've restored them.
Wow. Wow, does this take me back? Wow. This really takes me back. Wow. This really takes me back. Man, does this take me back. Oh, man. This takes me back to yesterday. Hello, Simon and Garfunkel. This takes me back. God help me. This really takes me back. You know, a few years, sure, a while ago, records.